Hello, and welcome to the Cultivating Confidence podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nicole Grams. I am a life coach who specializes in anxiety, health, and human design. And I also happen to be a functional medicine pharmacist. This podcast is a compilation of conversations that I've had with clients and colleagues. So listen in as we explore the mind, body, and soul's confidence in its many forms. So what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about how the brain works and why it does what it does. As some of you know already, the brain is kind of conditioned at a pretty early age. The experts say that by age 7, we have formed a lot of the beliefs that we have about life. And for some of you, that might be terrifying to learn. For some of you, it can be empowering because it's not thoughts that you're just, trying to think now. It's just something that was sort of there the whole time. So the brain kind of has two separate parts, one being the prefrontal cortex, which is the adult brain. This is the one that matures later on in life, so probably in your mid to late 20s, which is why a lot of early 20-somethings and teenagers do a lot of reckless things without really fear for long-term consequences. So it's really in your late 20s. Yeah, Big L. It's really in your late 20s that you form the ability to understand the concept of long-term consequences and actually have those in your brain. There is also another part of your brain called the amygdala, and that I often refer to lovingly as a toddler brain, or the smoke alarm brain, or sometimes it's even toddlers running around with knives or driving a truck, or all kinds of dramatic things. Just insert whatever dramatic thing you have. So the amygdala is what's sort of like the smoke alarm. So the amygdala is what's going to keep you safe. There's a purpose for it, and it'll keep you from dying, essentially. So it is going to take control whenever it can. It's pretty easily triggered by anything that looks, smells, sounds like danger that you have experienced in the past. And danger nowadays is a little bit different than danger back in the day when we were in like tribal communities having to actually survive and run from wild animals. So right now, our amygdala hasn't really adjusted to the fact that we're not in any physical danger. We are just, it's really more mental stress and mental threats of like being excluded from the tribe sort of threats versus actually running for your life. Your amygdala is your first responder. It's immediate. Your prefrontal cortex, the adult brain, allows you to think things through. It really just kind of can, if you let it, take over the situation. It's how you plan things, how you set goals for yourself. It's able to override the amygdala if you practice doing that. And it's sort of like that moment where, oh my gosh, what was that noise? And then like the amygdala or the prefrontal cortex takes over, like, oh, it was just a dog barking outside or whatever it was. And sometimes it's not quite that simple, but it is delayed compared to the amygdala. It's sort of like okay, hold on a second. Let's really think this through. Is this really what's going on? And do we really need to freak out? And if not, then it can kind of tell the amygdala to calm down. And again, that's something that happens only if you've practiced, especially if you've been in a pretty high anxiety state for a long time. So what our brain wants to do is it's called the motivational triad. Well, I don't know if it's called, that's what I call it, motivational triad. So our brains are wired to avoid discomfort. So we're resisting pain, embarrassment, anything to stay safe. We want to, number 2, preserve energy. So the least amount of energy that we use to accomplish any task is best according to our brains. And then 3, seeking pleasure. So it wants to do what feels good. Often that's food, fun, other adult activities per se. Those sorts of things are what the brain seeks out. And if you take a look at what society has sort of shown us, it's that these things are very readily accessible. In the past, way back in the day, again, we would have had to seek them out. We would have had to actively try to avoid discomfort. We would have actively had to try to preserve energy because we don't know when our next meal is coming. And it's also looking to, relax and have fun, because those times were less frequent when we were hunter-gatherer type people, like our DNA is built for. So in order to overcome these things, you have to learn that they're a thing. And then we move into the growth triad. So that is doing the exact opposite. So we're going to invite discomfort. Discomfort does not necessarily mean danger. And the more you experience the discomfort in different ways that help you grow, the more your brain understands that this isn't actually a threat. It's still going to have that smoke alarm signal saying, hey, is this a threat? And then you can immediately say, nope, I've been through this before. This is okay. We're good. Calm down. The second thing that we want it to do is expend energy. So growth and rewiring the brain takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy to rewire the brain and to create new pathways with the thoughts that you want to think. So you have to expend energy practicing what it is that you want to think. The third thing that we have to try to force it to do if we want to grow is delay gratification. So we have to use the adult brain to make decisions that are good in the long run. So this can be things like meal planning instead of running to fast food. It can be things like turning off the Netflix or something like that, and actually going and completing whatever task it was you're supposed to be doing, or you want to have accomplished, not supposed to be doing. Anyway, we'll talk about that some other day. Should and supposed to and all of that stuff, those are all myths. And then one of the last concepts that I want to go over tonight is that we all have beliefs that are really just thoughts. And we've been thinking these thoughts over and over and over again. We've practiced these thoughts over and over and over again. There are some beliefs that very much serve us and keep us safe, and it's our brain making it efficient for everything that we're doing. We don't want to have to think hard about everything that we're doing, because then we're going to waste a lot of energy with our, driving to work or cooking dinner or, tasks and things that we've done for forever. We want those beliefs and those mental, emotional pathways to be working exactly as they are. And our brain wants to conserve energy by using them. So the beliefs that we have that are not helping us in our life, we want to question them. We want to go through, okay, once we figure out the thought, we can go through this inquiry system. And this is going to be the work of Byron Katie, who is an amazing author. I would highly recommend all of her books. But specifically, Loving What Is what kind of changed my life. So that's what I would recommend for all of you to start out with if you have not already read it. So once we have a thought that we have dissected from our web of all of the things, we want to question, is this thought true? Is it an absolute fact? Usually not. But if you're convinced that, oh, so-and-so did this just to spite me, that's a thought that we have. Is it true? Oh yeah, they definitely did. But then can you absolutely know that it's true? Or is it possible that there's some other motivation, there's something else that you missed? Maybe you didn't know that they were going through a catastrophic thing in their life, right? We want to question. So a good example that I often use with this is if someone cuts you off in traffic and you're driving along, someone cuts you off, you almost get in a wreck, everybody's fine though. Your thought may be, what a jerk. This guy needs to slow down, all these things. So what a jerk. Is it true that this guy's a jerk? Well, yeah, they cut me off. Well, can you absolutely know that that's true, that they're a jerk and that's why they did that? Like, no. And that's where my brain goes to, what if they're rushing off to the hospital because they just got some bad news that a family member is, sick or dying? Or, what if this person's on their way to, their wife is having a baby right now, like they're trying to get there in time. So it can change how our brain perceives the situation if we're able to insert something in the story that could make it not true. And then once we know that it's not necessarily true, then we want to look at what happens when you believe that it's true. So how do you act if you believe that this guy's a jerk? You might get mad, you might start swearing, you might start cutting other people off out of spite, you might try to tailgate him for a while. Who would you be without the thought that this guy's a jerk? You might not get that spike in blood pressure. You might not get that stress response if you really sink into, who would I be if I didn't believe this thought that I'm having? And then you want to find ways that that the opposite of the thought is true. So this guy is a jerk. That's our first thought. Turning it around one way might be, this guy is not a jerk. So how do we know that that's true? What's evidence that we have that that part is true? And then another way to turn it around might be, I am a jerk. And that might be a way to say, wow, I really was a jerk when this guy cut me off. I was not compassionate. I was not nice at all. I was not any of the things that I want to be as a human being. And therefore I was a jerk. And sometimes that can be a really hard pill to swallow. And some of this, it can be very humbling when you start doing this thought work to really understand what your role is in everything that you're creating in your life. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. It can be a very humbling experience, especially through this, what many of us call an awakening process of like figuring out, what it is our brains are doing and how we're really showing up in the world for everyone else. So thank you guys for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And I love doing this so much. I get emotional about it all the time. Some of you already know that, but but yeah, it's heavy work that we are choosing to take on for ourselves. And congratulations for being here, because most people would not take this step because it's uncomfortable. And that's okay. They're allowed to not process things. They're allowed to not reach out for help. That's totally valid. But if we want to live the life that we want, if we want to grow, if we want to exist as our own selves, that's where we need the power of thought work and a community to help support us. So for those of you who have done one-on-one coaching with me, you know that we can get so much deeper than what we got tonight. And I would invite the rest of you, I'll have a link in the members area to sign up for a discovery call, just one-on-one with me if you'd like to. Otherwise, I am definitely here for you in whatever capacity that I can be. So thank you for the support that we have already demonstrated for this. Yeah, some powerful work that we're all doing, and I appreciate you all. So, all right, with that, love and light to all of you. Have a great night, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. Many of you will be able to take the ideas that you've heard and apply them in your daily life, and that's really all you need. That's amazing. But for those of you who could use a little one-on-one help with how to make these things actually work for you in your real life, please reach out. The link to schedule a consult with me is in the show notes. You don't have to do this alone. See you soon.